part of defining this garden area was to have a small wall dividing the gravel patio from the raised garden. We came up with the idea of making a small extension of the hollow block wall.
We're going to backfill all this.
We're making sure we're tying them together extra strong concrete to this wall today.
All this block.
Close the door and leave the light on. The morning light should be coming soon. Kick off your shoes and leave the winter and the pain it brings to you. Lay your head upon my shoulder. Shut off your thoughts and clear your mind.
One of the other features of this entire terrace project was the garden bed that we created here. So it would make sense with all the levels we're creating with this wall. And part of defining this garden area was to have a small wall dividing the gravel patio from the raised garden. This meant making a small design change on how we're going to establish this garden retaining wall. The original plan was to use treated timber to divide these two areas. But after discussing it with the property owner, we came up with the idea of making a small extension of the hollow block wall. It's not unusual to want to make small design changes in garden retaining wall systems like this, but it did involve a few engineering challenges, one of which was we needed to incorporate a small foundation for this wall that would be locked into the foundation of the main wall. Because this small wall is going to be on the high side of our hill, so it was effectively a stepped foundation. So this small wall is only 3 block courses high instead of 5 like the main wall.
This morning we're going to backfill all this wall here. So yesterday we framed out foundation for this design change, where the wall's going to wrap back into this little courtyard. This return here also adds strength for holding the wall up because it's exactly at the halfway point along this wall. And today we're going to backfill behind this wall. So our bottom 3 courses are locked into a 400mm wall worth of concrete with this drainage system sort of half buried in the concrete. So when we pour out the back of this wall, we can pour into this system here because we've put all the rebar in, which is part of what's going to hold this wall up. We've got some more rebar to add in here, sticking it in our block voids into the wall. It's a bit rainy today, so we're just going to wing it, see what we can get done. But the idea would be to have all this backfilled with concrete by the end of the day.
Sometimes I feel lonely in my head.
We're cutting up about 30 small pieces of reinforcement bar to tie our foundation into this hollow block wall.
I want to be happy. Never give up.
I do a quick count to make sure I've got enough small pieces of rebar. For each block in the wall has 2 slots cut in it, and we need a piece of rebar for each slot. It seems like a lot of pieces of rebar, but it's part of the engineering system of what's going to hold this wall up. The concrete that's poured into the back of this wall is going to lock into all this rebar. Once we've put all the pieces of rebar in place, we tie them all off with our tie wire. We're making sure we're tying them together extra strong in this application because when we backfill this wall with concrete, we're going to be dumping it out of the barrow directly. So this rebar has to take a bit of force. We want it to hold together to keep its integrity for the engineering of this wall. As we've done many times in this project, we just tighten the tie wire with our fingers and then finish it off with the pliers to make a really tight fit. We have a lot of pieces to tie on to complete this wall. So as I've done many times through this project, I get into the rhythm of what I'm doing, stay focused and present, and try and enjoy the task. This kind of work can be atrocious and tedious, but if you stay present whilst you're doing it,
then I start again. I will without any hesitation. I'm lonely. I'm lonely. I'm not lonely.
the chickens are coming up into my work area.
Now the end we know is coming.
The final piece of preparation for our reinforcement bar is to cut our vertical lengths for the wall. This is what creates the mesh system of rebar inside the wall, creating our engineering strength to hold the hillside up.
I'd have no chance.
One of the last things I'm going to do before pouring concrete into this is finish off this pier system on this corner. We're just using plain block, so we're going to be putting packers under this block to get it level. The aim here is to get these blocks matching the same height as our split face blocks. I'm using my collection of recycled packers to figure out which combination will get everything to the right height. Using my small level as a guide, we keep adjusting the packers until we get everything plumb. Once I'm satisfied I've brought them up to the right height, I make one last check with my level, and then it's ready for concrete. The blocks I've added to this corner is for additional strength due to the amount of dirt that this corner has to hold up.
So this morning we're going to be pouring concrete inside this wall to lock it into this backfilled concrete foundation, because all this will be underground. We've got all our steel in. Once we have the concrete in this, we can go up the next two courses, which finishes the wall height.
We're going to be adding a large volume of concrete to this wall today. Part of doing a successful concrete pour is keeping a wet pour going, which means you don't want the concrete drying halfway through the pour of the system, as this will create a weakness in the wall. So our objective is to keep concrete flowing into the wall and keeping it wet enough so the wet concrete bonds to itself as we pour it out. We achieve this by making sure we spread our pour out through the entire wall section by adding several tubs of concrete into the wall before we start agitating. I always put a special kind of mix for this bottom part of the wall for the bedding so it adheres to the pre-existing concrete. I then start agitating this bed of concrete we added. We do this really thoroughly as we want to get all the air bubbles out and get a really good adhesion to the previous concrete we've poured in this wall. We make sure we work every pocket and every void. This process has to be done properly, otherwise it could lead to real weaknesses in the wall. After the concrete's been worked in thoroughly, we wet the entire wall down with a hose. This assists in slowing the concrete from setting throughout our process, and also washes clean any concrete we've spilt on the outer wall whilst we're pouring it in the voids. With enough concrete poured in the core of the wall, we start to pour concrete in the backfill area. This is the hidden part of the wall because it's under the dirt height, but this is what adds the extra strength to this wall. This massive concrete creates a step system in the wall, which is part of the engineering design for what enables this wall to hold up the tons of dirt that lie behind it. This part of the wall is actually double the thickness of the block, but hidden underground.
Can you tell tell me if that will do. If it won't, then you tell me, then I start again.
Here you can notice a temporary platform I built out of plywood to stop the dirt collapsing under us as we do this concrete pour. As we're doing this backfill pour, we include the new foundation of our design change for our small extension on this wall. This was all part of the idea of being able to lock this little foundation into the backboard concrete for extra strength. By pouring out this small foundation with the backfill all in one session, and with all the steel we added, it makes it effectively one unit of concrete, which is what's needed to keep this wall in place. We continue our concrete pour all the way to the far corner where we installed that concrete block to create the small pier. The inside corner pier we've put in the corner of this wall is to add extra strength due to the amount of dirt that this end of the wall has to hold up.
We lived our lives the way we want, without fear.
So yesterday we filled out all this block and we poured out this backfill foundation, which is part of the sort of engineering strength of this wall. So everything that's underground is at least 400 wide, coming up to the dirt, and then what's above ground will be single block width. So we'll pull out all the formwork we have for this foundation today and backfill it with gravel, so we've got easy access to behind the wall for building it. We also pulled out this little foundation here where the wall turns back. That was a bit of a design adjustment to tie us into the deck back here. Got all our rebar set for the next two courses. We're just putting a rebar in every other block, because when I put the other two blocks on, there'll be another piece of rebar in here. And of course rebar along every course.
Join me on the next episode as we lay the next course of this wall down.
You told me all the time I'd have no chance. I'd say I wouldn't have if you weren't there. But I didn't, we didn't make the most of it. So we'll make the rest the most of all we can.
Thanks for joining me this week in my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.